Hello and welcome to today's video. This time we'll be having a look through my collection as it stands in 2024 of my vintage Picador white spine paperbacks. These are in the B formats, and my beautiful bottle green Virago Modern Classics. So sit back, relax, and let's take a look. Okay then, so I got to admit, I was tempted into starting to pick up the Picadors after reading Nicholas Royle's fantastic book about his adventures collecting them in the book White Spines, which we'll have a look at the end of this video, but I can very much recommend that. And when you go through it, unfortunately, his collecting is infectious and you can't help but start picking up a few Picadors. And they started in 1972 with 6 books. So this is um, on the whole, almost all the Picadors that you're going to see today are first prints. There's a couple of reprints that I've got, but I've got them for the books rather than as a collectible per se. But I just wanted ideally one of each. But because space is at a premium, I do want first printing books, and this is that. So trout fishing in America, one of the more famous ones. This, and you'll see the actual print history. So Picador is an imprint of Pan Books, which, as you know, I very much collect Pan, and these early ones here were first published Picador in 1972, and this is in effect this is almost like a launch title. There was actually 6 that were issued at launch, and I've got 4 of them now. There's Trout Fishing in America, Herman Hesse, Ross Hold, The Bodyguard, and my favourite of the first 6, as I said, I've only got 4 of them, is this one by Angela Carter, Heroes and Villains. Absolutely beautiful covers on these, and these were aimed at a more upmarket and literary audience. It was as simple as that. These early ones in particular are tough to find in nice condition, but I have been lucky, and I've just kept an eye open for them when I've been out and about, and I've managed to pick them up for no more than like £3 or £4. So that's sort of my cut-off point with these. So they are all out there, and there is the distinctive white spines. However, these early ones here are more yellow than white. But there you go. So as we go through these today, you will see them in date order, basically by year. That's as much as I've got because they're not numbered. They've all got ISBNs, and I have got a checklist which actually came from Nicholas. He sent me one down, which I've adapted to suit my own needs, and I've got the books sorted by year up to the year 2000, which is sort of my cut-off point. And after that, the white spines sort of lose their distinctive, you know, identity really, and they just become like any other B format paperback, so not so much fun. But these early ones are fantastic, and there's a lot of them to get. I think about 600, something like that. So it's quite the task, and I haven't even got a fraction of that. But I just pick them up when I see them. So here's the next year. These are into 1973 now. These ones. And really, really like some of the jacket designs on these. Quite often they'll have who actually designed or painted the jacket. In this case, cover painting by John Holmes, got up to 60p on the books. As I said, I'd like to get them in first printings, but I believe some of the real best sellers, something like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, for example, is going to be very, very difficult to find in the first print. And of course, that doesn't actually have a white spine; it has an orange spine. But yeah, the books are very susceptible to this sort of foxing, and it's the sort of thing to look at. If they're really horrific, I'm not going to keep them. But this is 1974 still, but I think they really are. It is a high class list. There is some books that perhaps I'm never ever going to read, but at the same time, there are books that I know I'd like to read at some point to basically improve my reading, and that's what this list is sort of full of, really. I don't mind Ian McEwan. This is one of the earlier. Well, this is I think this is his debut. This is the first from 1976. This one, very, very nice. Don't mind Ian McEwan. This is quite an interesting one. This is the Tolkien Companion. It's about 77 now. This is the first of that one. It's again quite a nice one. This. Big thick book. A for Rolf, Hadrian VII. These are still in the 1970s at the moment. These are really nice. These the Gabriel Garcia Marquez ones. I wouldn't mind a few more of these. See, an author like this, these books must have done all right. I mean, they must have sold okay because they are around. And if you do like a casual search on eBay, you can find all of these books usually in quite decent numbers. This is 1978 for this particular one. So you might just need to be a little bit patient. I haven't bought any of mine off eBay. I've just done mine. All of mine have been found in bookshops where I've been able to sort of inspect the books first and to make sure, I'm buying something at least half decent. And trying to find first printings online, you know what it's like. Most people really don't care what printing is what. So, it's a bit of a tricky one, really. These were nice. I did pick up 3 Picadors off a Dorset Bob, which came in a collection. So these all 3 were Italio Calvinos, and they were I think like £3.50 each. He charged me, which I thought was very, very good. A Henry Green here. So one thing that Picador do, and I think these are perhaps harder to get the most, is the omnibuses where they've got more than one book in one, and we'll see a few of those today. There's certainly some absolute corkers that they've published that I haven't got, but at the same time there are some good ones, well, at least a couple of good ones to show you today that I have got. Another Italio Calvino, 25, this one. This is how I'd like them all to be. This was in 1979, and this is, as I said, from Dorset Bob, typical of his condition, with nice white pages, really beautiful editions. Another Ian McEwan. That's a Cement Garden. Bruno Schulz. And it will be interesting to see how, when I look back on this video in, say, 5 years' time, or even less than that, how my Picador collection has possibly expanded. I think, I've picked up most of these in like less than a couple of years, so that now that they're on my radar, they are definitely out there. Another Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and there's so many of these books that I just want to tuck into, and you can almost pick one off the shelf at random and know you're going to get something pretty interesting. Adam Morris Jones, interesting cover as well. Janet Woolley did that one. As I said, I do like the fact that they list like the cover artist or the designer. Another Ian McEwan. I got all my Ian McEwans at the same time. It was in a local bookshop. They were 3 for £5. I thought, I'm not leaving these behind, and they were nice condition. Basically, this is 1981 now. I think these were basically an original owner collection, but I don't think any of the Ian McEwan ones are scarce because, once again, they sold well. And here's another. These were published back to back. Those 2, they're like jointed on the list. Here's another one of those huge omnibus editions. This is Dashiell Hammett, which is fantastic. The 4 great novels. It is a shame that they didn't include The Thin Man, and I don't know why that is. I mean, the book is enormous already, as you can see. I'm not sure, but I think this is one of those ones that's actually, it might actually be a reprint. I can't remember. Yeah, this is a reprint, but it was in the 3 for £5, so I didn't want to leave it behind. Even just for a reader, it's absolutely fantastic way to read them. It's nice. The Emperor. I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. Here's perhaps the biggest, thickest standalone one. It's Norman Mailer, who I do like. I got quite a bit of his stuff, a fair bit in Penguin. And this was, once again, it was in the 3 for £5 in my local second-hand bookshop, which was pretty good news. And this one actually is a first from 1984. Pretty nice. That actually got an unbroken spine, so I doubt that one's actually been read. This one I think is a reprint. The 5 great novels of James M. Caan. I suppose, well, they are. Yeah, Double Indemnity, Mildred Pierce, and Postman Always Rings Twice are the 3 that I know. The other 2 I've not read at all. Just see the printing on this one. Yeah, that was the first as well. So we're up to 1985 now. Julian Barnes. These are the ones where, when we start getting into the 80s, there are some authors that are the books are very common, something like these Julian Barnes, but they're also not, top priority on my list, really. So I'm only picking these sort of later ones up under duress, you could say, and also if they're cheap. Now they need to make a little bit more room there. A moment. We got another beautiful Italio Calvino. These are beautiful looking books, aren't they? They really, really are gorgeous. £2.50 this, and that's a real pleasant reading experience. That really is, that one. Yes, 1985. You think it's almost 40 years old. That's a beautiful book. That's it. It was just £3.50 there off Dorset, Bob. PJ O'Rourke, Republican Party Reptile. I seem to remember years ago having a PJ O'Rourke proof, I think, of some sort. Jim Crace, Continent. That one won the Whitbread First Novel Prize, 1986. Another Julian Barnes, Staring at the Sun. That's actually got a yellow wraparound jacket, so that's another one which isn't quite white. Now we're on to the later books now. So these are not my sort of favourites, these ones from the late 80s into the 90s now, Jonathan Rabin, but they're picked up because they were cheap on the whole. So again, like a travel one, I was actually given to me this, so I picked it up because, well, it was a first print and it was a Picador white spine. This one I remember picking up in Liverpool. I was struggling for stuff to find in the bookshop, and it was a bit of a later one. I thought, well, that looks fairly interesting, so I picked that one up. This was just a beautiful one. I got this one from Morris at All You Need Is Books. This was in his £1 bookshop, and that was a beautiful book. I didn't want to leave that one behind. George Underwood, Turtle Diary, Spalding Gray. I said I've given these all a clean, but those early ones, as you can see, they really are susceptible to the old foxing and that because of the paper that they were printed on. I picked this one up in Torquay, and it was, because it's signed Charles Nicholl. Don't know much about him at all, but apparently it's a pretty good book, that one. So I couldn't leave that behind. Bret Easton Ellis, this is the film tie-in to Rules of Attraction. Once again, this just sort of ended up in my collection. I didn't want to get rid of it because it is theoretically a white spine. Joe Quinnan, don't know much about this chap, and Unkindest Cut. Yeah, David Hughes did the jacket on this one. Yeah, 1996. And yet another PJ O'Rourke, a very, very common one, Eat the Rich. You'll notice a distinct lack of a few of the more common ones, like Last Orders and Bridget Jones's Diary. I'm sure they'll come my way. And of course, the inspiration for all of these was this book here, which was Nicholas Rawle. There he is on the back, in front of his white spines. And I've read this one 3 times now. It is literally that good. And the follow-up has actually just come out. So I'll link to both of those in the description down below. In fact, you can even see the laminate's coming off because I have read it a few times now. Published by Salt, which is a great little imprint. And if you want to see like a dedicated video on Nicholas Rawle, the Mr. White Spines and Mr. Picador, there's a really good video on my friend Steve's channel, The Outlaw Bookseller, which once again, if I remember, I'll try and put a link to that exact video because it's really entertaining. And Steve's got virtually all of Nick's work now. And well, there we are. That is the Picador White Spines. And I think it's a fledgling collection, so we say, but it's one that I'm very much enjoying collecting, along with these, which is, I don't think Nicholas collects these. This is a Virago Modern Classics, and these are in a very, very similar vein. They are B format, as you can see. In a lot of cases, they've got really nice, beautiful, and interesting covers, predominantly. In fact, I think totally these are all written by women, so women authors, and Virago made a real point of trying to uncover books that have been long, long out of print. They started around the same sort of time, I think it's 72, 73. And they were actually in hardback, the first Virago books. The Modern Classics started a few years later, I think it was about 76, 77, when this sort of imprint started. And this is my earliest one. And at this point, the books weren't numbered. This is dated 1970. Well, the introduction here is 1980. Virago is a feminist publishing company. And that's the group, which is all women. And I think this is a fresh printing of this one. Some of them are really, really tricky to tell. The Judge. So you have to do a little bit of research sometimes on these. Yeah, this is also 1980. I'm trying to think when they did introduce, and I'm sure we'll see it in a minute, a numbering system which does help. And whether they were trying to encourage people to, try and collect them all, or what, I'm not sure. But the easy clue is if the book is like this and it's like £2.95, generally speaking, it's going to be an early printing. I did publish loads of Rosalind Layman. This is 1981 here. To Sackville-West, and this book, I mean, you're sure to know it. I mean, certainly it was a Penguin, I'm sure, at one point, but at this point it had just gone out of print, and this is where Virago came along to bring it back. Yeah, 83 here. So there are, in the numbered series, once again, there's several hundred if you want to try and get them all. This is one by Elizabeth Taylor. I'm pretty sure this is a reprint. It's an early edition, but it's a reprint. This is my absolute favourite by her. She's one of my all-time favourite Virago authors. I mean, she wasn't Virago originally, of course, but they brought her entire backlist back. I think she's published by Vintage now, which is a part of Virago. And yeah, this is the reprint from 1985. And this is what I was trying to refer to, the Virago Modern Classic number 112. So there are people who collect these, and a list of the Virago Modern Classics is available online. But yeah, in a summer season, fantastic. What a great book that one is. Soul of Kindness. So you will see a few by Elizabeth Taylor, and some are first and some of them are reprints. But yeah, she is my favourite of the Virago authors. This is a much later one. You can see the change in the style now. This is what I like, sort of the classic dark green. This is the slightly lighter editions with the more up-to-date logo. Elizabeth Taylor here, but I had a lucky find with these because you don't often, you see the odd one here or there. You rarely come across them in numbers. And I was in my local second-hand bookshop, and they actually had a whole shelf. He must have had a collection coming. There was about 30 there, and I went through and I pulled out all the first editions that were in reasonably nice condition. Another Taylor there. Obviously, this is Elizabeth Taylor, the author, not the actress. I'm sure you all knew that. Not sure about this lady here. This is 1988. That one. Rebecca West, Cousin Rosamond. And once again, this is a much later one, but it's her short stories. They're really excellent. This is one I've taken on holiday before and enjoyed. Now, this one here is another Rebecca West. Slightly different design on this one. And yeah, it's because it's under modern history. So it's got a different sort of, although it's got the familiar Virago covers, and Rebecca West was a Virago author, it's part of their modern history section, so it's or list, so it's slightly different. As was this one here. So this is non-fiction again, Over Our Dead Bodies, Women Against the Bomb. And this was a Virago paperback original. This was listed as Social Questions and Politics, but published under the Virago Press. This would have been the nuclear campaign time, 1983, Greenham Common time with that, I would imagine. Obviously, they did autobiographies, and one of their big authors was Maya Angelou. Let's give ourselves a little bit more room here. Was Maya Angelou, and they printed all of her works. Sadly, although I've seen a couple of copies of I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which is perhaps her most famous one, and it's a terrific read if you've never read it. I haven't been able to get the Virago first of that one. It's one I'm still on the lookout for. But I've got a couple of hers. That was The Heart of a Woman and Singing and Swinging. But I'm sure anyone who was in the book trade, sort of in the late 80s, 90s, she was quite the phenomenon, Maya Angelou. This one here is Virago for children. So once again, something a little bit more different. Who'd have thought it? This there is a name for it, Virago Upstarts. So I guess it's aimed at teenagers, and this is a very early book on, well, being green, saving the planet. Very, very topical these days, of course. Just the sort of thing Virago would champion. And this was, look at this, this was 24 years ago. So it's nice to see that. Very, very good indeed. Now, a couple of Viragos actually, this is a celebration of Virago when they were 40, but they're actually 50 now, I believe. And but this one was one which was available through bookshops in 2013. Yeah, so they're actually 51 years old now, Virago, just a year later than the Picadors. And this is like a little um, all the Virago authors, at least a lot of the Virago authors that were alive and being published by Virago, did their own like little tributes in this one. And this, I believe, was just given away in bookshops. It's just full of little essays. It was basically an advertisement for the lovely Virago list. And then I got one more, and this one came out, I think, a couple of years ago. And my daughter bought me this one. This is a celebration of Virago Modern Classics at Writers as Readers. And this is once again got, well, you can see it's a little anthology, and it's Virago authors on other Virago authors. That's the catch on that. It's really good. It's really, really good. And the introduction is good as well, which is a little history of the imprint. There is actually an official Virago page, and they do chronologically go over the Virago history right from the very early days, and it's really interesting actually. But as I said, I've only got a tiny collection of Virago books, but it's certainly something that I am now, it's on my radar to pick up nice first editions alongside the Picador white spines. They go very, very well together. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that little tour of my white-spined Picadors and my Virago beautiful modern classics, all in the B format. I think they are fantastic, and they are certainly on my radar when I'm out and about doing my book hunting. I think they should be on your radar too, because there's some really good stuff in there to get your teeth stuck into. If you've enjoyed this little tour of my mini collection of these today, do please give it the thumbs up. Do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already for regular vintage paperback coverage. And I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.